understand the essence and the nature of Jeet Kune Do, we have to understand the history. Sijo, Grandmaster Bruce Lee, was a student of Ip Man. So he was in the direct lineage of the greatest Wing Chun master ever, next to Ip Chun, depending on, Wing Chun politics. But that notwithstanding, some real hard fighting Hong Kong modern kung fu. In terms of modern, I mean, these guys sparred as hard as boxers do. And Grandmaster Bruce Lee changed the system of Wing Chun, which has evolved from tiger and snake and crane kung fu. And he said, these traditional forms and these big flowery circles and this forward facing is not going to work against a skilled school modern opponent. So he took this modern stance, but yet he kept the essence, the science, and the counterpunching, the simultaneous movements, the combination, and the dirty kung fu fighting, which is not allowed in the ring or in competition, like the eye jabs and the spearing fingers to the throat and so forth. And, using these brilliant triple rhythm combinations, which tend to typify Junfan Chinese boxing, this kind of like peri-peri hit or Tan Sao Peri hit, and that kind of triple bop is the setup for these kind of like parry, joint lock, hit, control, use that kind of snake and crane classic joint locking and dirty fighting, if you will, eye gouging and tearing and spearing fingers and so forth. So point of what I'm saying is Grandmaster Bruce Lee invented this stuff decades ago. But what he also did, because he wrote 13 books and he was a philosopher, and only one of those books was really specifically on the science and the techniques of the hands and so forth. I mean, he was a deep, profound guy. So he just said more than anything, incorporate what works and abandon what is useless. And that principle of using what works and abandoning what doesn't work set the groundwork for Jeet Kune Do evolving into a whole number of things. And one thing he said in his book, which is priceless, he said, don't get caught up in the terminology or the words. And people did decades ago. And unfortunately, they still do. He was like, it's all about the techniques. It's all about the efficacy. Forget about the terminology. Forget about the schools and the lineages and the styles, and especially formalization. Like, he really hated forms, which were really big and an instrumental part in teaching Westerners martial arts, Japanese, Chinese, whatever martial arts forms, because they're good at just teaching beginners. But Bruce Lee abhorred and hated forms, which is why Jeet Kune Do is principles. Unlike karate, Kyokushin, or all these styles which have forms, there is no form in Jeet Kune Do. There's a bunch of stances and a bunch of ideas and principles, but no formal forms per se. So the idea is, unlike boxing, where you have your rear side, your power side in the back, so you can really light somebody up, in Jeet Kune Do, you have your power side in the front. Because Grandmaster Bruce Lee knew that a jab or any front side attack landed much more frequently than rear side attacks, even though rear side attacks might have more leverage, might or might not have more leverage depending on how you throw them. Usually they do. So the idea of having your dominant side forward and not in the back is one of the innovations of Jeet Kune Do, as is this idea of intercepting and blasting, coming in with a defense and simultaneous offense, which is called Lin Seal Dai Da. So namely, while I'm parrying, I'm hitting. While I'm slipping and parrying, I'm hitting. I'm not just throwing a shot, I'm throwing a shot defensively, because at the exact same time that I'm throwing it, I'm also throwing defense. So it's a very forward-moving system. It's a very intercepting system. It relies on the sacred geometry and the gates and the ideas of Wing Chun, which is a very precise, very formulated martial art, which has a limited amount of forms, but those forms typify this type of geometry, which is so specific and so exact and so scientific in terms of center line principle. The way that Grandmaster Bruce Lee adapted and modified this center line principle to modern combatives is just brilliant, because he was the first person really to break things down technically in that way, and yet philosophically keep himself open so that he was non-dogmatic. It was not like, this is correct.